Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the shadows of medieval Europe, not to explore castles or jousts or those oddly shiny goblets, but to see what life was really like for someone you've probably fantasized about being, a medieval assassin. Sounds cool, right? Cloaks, daggers, mysterious missions, whispered code words under moonlight. But don't get too excited. The truth is messier, colder, itchier, and way more humiliating than any video game would have you believe. You're going to sweat through layers of wool, sleep in hay beside snoring pigs, and get chased by angry nuns for reasons that won't be clear until much later. You'll get lied to, underpaid, blamed for things you didn't do, and, surprise, no one even tells you how to do the actual assassinating. You're just expected to figure it out before someone stabs you instead. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far and wide this sleepy little history squad stretches. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are hungry, cold, and standing outside a rotting barn at dusk. Your only possessions, a short dagger with a chipped blade, a pair of threadbare boots, and a burlap sack that smells like pickled onions. You didn't sign up for this. Well, you did, but not really. 3 weeks ago, you were a failed apprentice tanner. That meant days spent scraping flesh off animal hides. Nights passed sleeping near vats of urine used for softening leather. Your master was a man named Gregor, who only knew two moods, yelling and snoring. One evening, after accidentally ruining a very expensive hide by sneezing on it, you were told you'd never be a tanner, not in this town or any other. So naturally, you drank 3 cups of something called monk cider, fell asleep behind a mill, and woke up to a man in a hood whispering in your ear, "You look like someone who's lost everything." He offered you bread, fresh, still warm, in silver, real silver. He said, you could be useful. At that point, you were too dazed to ask useful for what. You nodded. Congratulations, you just got recruited. The next morning, you were blindfolded, thrown in a cart, and driven through what felt like every mud-filled ditch in the countryside. The blindfold came off in a crumbling stone cellar that smelled like old wine, garlic, and mild regret. There were 4 others equally confused, sitting in a line. One looked 12, another had no shoes. No one spoke. Then came the handler, a man with 1 eye, 3 teeth, and 0 patience. He didn't introduce himself. He just said, "If you're not dead in a month, we'll talk again." Training began. Except training might be the wrong word. It was more like being hit with sticks until you learned to flinch in the right direction. They gave you exercises like sprint 10 miles before dawn and hide in a well for 3 hours without making a sound. If you complained, you were told, you'll complain more when they're sawing off your fingers. So you shut up and learn, sort of. The food, left over from whatever the cooks didn't want, boiled roots, questionable porridge, and once a bird. Not a chicken, just a bird with feathers. The handler said, "Real assassins don't need flavor." One recruit cried because he bit down on something crunchy that wasn't supposed to be crunchy. Your sleeping quarters? A hay pile next to a rat who had clearly claimed the best part of the corner. You named him Bishop. You and Bishop shared dreams, nightmares, and at least once, a boiled beet. The worst part? No one ever explained what your job would actually be. There were whispers of targets, plots, kingdoms in danger, treason in the clergy. But mostly your days consisted of crawling through bramble bushes, dodging angry goats, and trying to remember how to walk without making noise. You failed. A lot. One day, you overheard a conversation between 2 senior agents. One said, "Another one?" The other replied, "They never last. Last week, one of them tried to smother a bishop with a pillow. Wrong bishop." Still, you stayed because there was nothing else. Because part of you wanted to be part of something. Even if it was this, your first assignment arrived scribbled on the back of a wine invoice. It said, "Deliver package, wear cloak, do not talk." No address, no instructions, just that. So you followed a trail of boot prints through the woods, Eventually finding a stone cottage with a mossy roof and a door held shut with an old frying pan, you knocked. An old woman opened it and said, "You're late." Then she shoved a small wooden box into your hands and slammed the door. You turned back and ran. The whole way back, you wondered, what's in the box? You never found out. That night, you were given bread with 2 kinds of cheese. The handler said, "You didn't screw it up, that's rare." And just like that, you weren't the worst anymore. But don't get too proud, because in the world of medieval assassins, not screwing up doesn't mean success. It just means you get to screw up bigger things next time. You start to realize that no one really knows what they're doing. The Brotherhood is 3 guys in a ledger. The master plan is a series of scribbles drawn in goat blood on the underside of a serving tray. And your next task is surveillance. You're told to watch a man named Petrus. He's dangerous, they say, or maybe just annoying. We're still deciding. You follow him for 3 days. He visits a bakery, a bathhouse, and a meadow where he sings to ducks. You're not sure if this is code. You report back. He likes birds. They nod like this is crucial intelligence. Later, you hear they poisoned his jam. Turned out, wrong Petrus. Yours was a duck-loving cobbler. The real target was his cousin, also named Petrus, who ran an illegal dice ring. That's when you begin to wonder, are we the good guys? A fair question. Unfortunately, one you never get an answer to. Because in this line of work, questions are dangerous. Curiosity might not kill the cat, but it'll definitely get you stabbed with a candlestick in a tavern basement while someone yells, "He was looking too closely at the stew." The more time passes, the more you realize your role isn't to succeed at missions. It's to confuse everyone just enough that they assume you're doing something important. You become a shadow not because you're stealthy, but because no one can tell what the heck you're doing. And that, oddly enough, keeps you alive. At least for now. You lie in the hay next to Bishop the Rat, watching the rafters above as they creak with every gust of wind. You have bruises on your ribs, dirt in your ears, and a vague idea that somewhere out there, a nobleman owes his life to your incompetence. He'll never know. Neither will you. And that's the beginning of your life as an assassin. Not with a glorious leap from a rooftop, but with a bad meal, a borrowed cloak, and a whole lot of guessing. You wake up face first in mud again. This time, it's not because of your usual sleeping arrangements, but because your handler thought it would be character building to make you sleep in a collapsed ditch beside the pig yard. Apparently, learning to be uncomfortable makes you less noticeable. You're starting to think they just enjoy watching you suffer. Today is training. Again, the word has lost meaning by now. You've been training for weeks. And not once has anyone explained how to hold a sword properly or which way is up on a crossbow. But you've been hit with sticks more times than you can count. Once by accident, twice on purpose, and one memorable moment with a chicken leg. Your handler appears on the ridge above, silhouetted against a gray sky that never seems to clear. "Up!" he barks. You try, your legs scream, your back cracks. You may be 19, but your spine thinks it's 90. You stagger upright, dripping, and try not to look directly into the eyes of the pig who has, once again, slept closer to the fire than you. They don't teach you stealth or swordplay. No, they teach you how to be invisible through exhaustion. One drill involves hiding in the same bush for 5 hours while the handler paces around muttering about owl posture. You don't know what that means. Another involves picking locks underwater. You failed. Now you have permanent wrinkles on your fingertips and a key that smells like mildew. But the worst drill by far is what they call conditioning. You and the others, your sad, muddy little cohort, are lined up in a barn while a man twice your size walks calmly down the row and punches each of you in the stomach. No warning, no mercy, just thump, next, thump, next. You've learned to clench exactly 0.8 seconds before impact. Too early, and he sees it and goes harder. Too late, and you can't breathe for an hour. They call it getting the fear out. You call it blunt trauma with rhythm. The strange part? You start to get better at it. Not good, not competent, but less hopeless. One day you manage to duck when someone throws a bucket at your head. Your handler blinks, then nods. It's the first time he's acknowledged your existence without an insult. Progress? Your companions, other recruits, are each developing their own weird specialties. One has a knack for scaling trees without using his legs. Another can mimic almost any farm animal. One can dislocate his own shoulder for dramatic effect. No one really knows how that's useful, but you're all impressed anyway. Your specialty? Not dying. You've tripped over a boiling cauldron, walked through a wasp nest, and once angered a goose so badly it chased you for 3 miles. But you keep surviving. Barely. The older assassins, those rare creatures who've seen things, come back occasionally. They sit in the shadows, drinking stew out of wooden cups and muttering about rooftops and bishops and the smell of basil. One of them has only one arm. Another has no tongue. You wonder if survival just means becoming less you every year. Eventually you get your first real mission. Not like the GOAT assignment. A real target. A minor official accused of treasonous thoughts. That could mean anything. Sneezing near a bishop, refusing to pay the baker's tax, or simply being disliked by someone higher up. You're told observe, report, do not engage. Which sounds reasonable, until you realize your handler means alone. You travel 2 days to the nearest town on foot. Your only supplies a moldy loaf of bread, a cracked flask of what might be ale, and a knife so dull it sighs when you use it. The target is a man named Thorin, middle-aged, wears a green hat, sells ink. That's all the information they gave you. Medieval intelligence gathering is mostly based on assumptions and vague drawings. You find him on the second day, arguing with a fishmonger about eel prices. You hide behind barrels, rooftops, and occasionally a donkey. You watch him greet children, haggle, and help a blind woman across the street. Honestly, he seems fine. Suspiciously fine, which makes you even more paranoid. One evening, you sneak closer. You climb a fence, roll into a compost heap, and lie still while an entire family of cats watches you disapprovingly. Thorin steps outside holding a candle. He looks up, whispers something you can't hear, and blows it out. Your heart races. What did he say? Was it a code, a prayer, a shopping list? You report back, covered in manure and questions. Your handler reads your scribbled notes and grunts. Maybe we'll kill him anyway, he says. He's too helpful. You're learning that the Brotherhood's strategy isn't so much just as it is convenient. You start to question things again. But the moment you ask, what's our purpose, really? Someone throws a boot at your head. You stop asking. The days blur into each other. Training, assignments, more training. Your body adapts. Your instincts sharpen. You learn to blend into markets, listen for whispers, recognize when someone's watching you. And yet, you still don't feel like an assassin. You feel like a desperate person in a rough cloak doing confusing errands for confused men in shadowy corners. One evening, a girl in the village hands you a piece of bread with honey. You smile. She looks confused. You look like someone who needs a win, she says. You don't eat it until hours later, when you're alone and the stars are bright. It's the best thing you've tasted in months. That's when you realize something. The training isn't about skills. It's about stripping you down until you don't need comfort, certainty, or kindness. Until you can exist entirely in the in-between places. Between homes, between names, between right and wrong. Assassins aren't born. They're what's left over after the world has forgotten you existed. You lie down next to a crumbling wall and close your eyes. You hear mice in the hay, your ribs ache, but your heartbeat is steady. That's progress. Kind of. You're handed a scroll at dawn. Not a fancy one, no ribbon, no wax seal. It's greasy and smells faintly of duck fat. You unroll it with numb fingers and try to decipher the jagged handwriting. The ink's smeared. The message is brief. East Valley, lowlands, red roof, eliminate discreetly. You stare at it. That's it? No name, no drawing, no context. Just a roof color and a suggestion to kill someone. You trudge to the East Valley in the rain. Everything is wet, even the inside of your boots. How is that possible? One footstep squelches like a dying frog. You're starting to think your socks are becoming self-aware. You find the lowlands. There are 4 houses with red roofs. Of course. You crouch behind a bush. Your legs are stiff. Your dagger is loose in its sheath. And your brain is fogged with equal parts fear and boredom. So you do what all great assassins must learn to do, guess. The first red-roofed cottage belongs to a weaver with 9 children and 1 pig. The second is a tavern where an old man throws bread at birds and calls it divination. The third is empty, unless you count the 5 chickens living in the hearth. And the fourth, that's where you go. You sneak in through the root cellar, because that's what assassins do, and creep up into the kitchen. You've never assassinated anyone before. You've practiced stabbing straw dummies, swatted at rodents, and once tried to sneak up on your own shadow. But now it's real. This is your moment. Except it's not a person waiting for you. It's a goat, tied up in the kitchen, chewing on someone's laundry. You freeze. The goat stares at you. You stare back. Its eyes are terrifying, flat, ancient, judging. You don't know what to do, so you slowly back away and bump into a hanging pot. It crashes to the floor. The goat bleats, loudly. A door slams open. A woman rushes in, waving a broom and screaming something in a dialect you do not understand. You run, through the yard, over the fence, into a nettle patch. You stay there, trying not to cry. Back at headquarters, you report, target may have been a misunderstanding. Your handler snorts. Goat? You nod. He laughs so hard he spills his stew, then, wiping his face, he says, "You'll do fine." You don't know whether to be insulted or relieved. After that, your assignments get stranger. One day you're told to intercept a courier. You hide in a barrel outside a tavern for 12 hours, only to discover the courier is a drunkie with a note that says, "Buy more garlic." Another time, you're sent to observe a cardinal's cat. That's not a code. They meant a literal cat. You're pretty sure the cat was on to you. It stared a lot. Your cohort starts dwindling. Some vanish on missions. Some quit. One became a chimney sweep and never looked back. You, though, you're still here. One evening, around a fire made from soggy twigs and a single page of a hymn book, an older assassin joins you. He's called Rafe. Everyone knows him. Nobody speaks to him. But tonight, he talks to you. You ever kill someone? He asks. You hesitate, not on purpose. He grins. His teeth are as uneven as a castle wall after a siege. Good, means you're still sane. You blink. Isn't that the job? No, he says, the job is not dying. The rest is just theater. He pokes the fire. Sparks rise like tiny fleeing souls. You want truth, he says? Half the time, they give us names just to scare people. Doesn't matter if we get them, just matters that someone might. Keeps nobles awake, makes bishops sweat. You think about that. Then why do we train, you ask? He laughs. To make it look convincing. You think I ever climbed a castle wall in real life? I've got bad knees. I bribe a servant. Easier. You're about to ask more, but he stands up and walks into the dark, whistling a tune that sounds suspiciously like a nursery rhyme. The next day, you receive your second real mission. This time, it's clear, a name, a place, a reason. You're to eliminate a guard captain in a small town known for its onions and annual pie throwing contest. Enemy of the crown, the note says. You travel under a false name, Brother Gerwin. Your cover? A wandering monk seeking spiritual onions. No one questions you. In fact, people feed you warm bread, onion stew. A little girl gives you a daisy. You almost feel guilty. You spend 4 days watching the captain. He doesn't seem evil. He teaches swordplay to orphans. He sings in the church choir. Once, he stopped a fight in the market by offering both men cheese. But your orders are clear. You wait until nightfall. He walks alone through the alley behind the chapel. Perfect. You step out, raise your dagger, and sneeze. Loudly, violently, wetly. He turns. You freeze. Then, he laughs. You all right there, brother? You nod, eyes watering. Just the onions. He smiles. Bless you. You never go through with it. Instead, you leave that night. Write a note. He's dead, fell in a river, body unrecoverable. You walk for 2 days. Don't stop. Don't sleep. When you get back, you hand in your report. Your handler scans it. That was fast. You say nothing. He shrugs. Good, we got another one. And that's the moment you realize it's not about doing it. It's about saying you did. As long as the fear spreads, the truth doesn't matter. You sit in your corner that night, chewing a piece of stale bread. You think about the captain. You think about the girl with the daisy. You think about the goat, the pies, the nursery rhyme. And you wonder, are you still you, or just another shadow moving through a world that doesn't ask questions anymore? You're standing in a swamp. Again, your assignment? Infiltrate a minor lord's estate under the cover of darkness, retrieve a set of documents supposedly hidden in his bedchamber, and, if the opportunity presents itself, eliminate him discreetly. You were told the estate is heavily guarded, nestled in a thickly forested area just past the ridge. What they didn't mention, there are two ridges, and you picked the wrong one. So now, instead of crouching behind velvet curtains in a candlelit manner, you're waist deep in brown water, being watched by a curious heron, and what you hope is just an unusually large toad. Let's back up. This morning began with promise. You had a plan. You even practiced your lines. God grant you peace, my lord, you whispered to yourself in various tones, deciding which one sounded least like a murder threat. You dressed in a stolen stable boy's tunic, smeared your face with chimney soot because someone once told you it made you blend in, and packed exactly 3 apples, 1 wax-sealed letter, and your slightly less dull than before dagger. The journey went wrong somewhere around dusk. You followed an old woman's directions, left at the leaning oak, past the angry geese, then up the ridge. But she failed to mention that everything in this region leans. Geese are omnipresent, and ridges appear wherever the ground has the audacity to slightly elevate. So here you are, in the wrong place, wet, lost, and with no idea how to proceed. You try retracing your steps, only to discover that the marsh has swallowed your footprints. Great. You're an assassin who can't even find himself. Eventually, you stumble into a clearing and spot firelight through the trees. Finally, you creep closer, rehearsing your approach. Something quiet, something deadly, something impressive. You step into the torchlight and realize too late that it's not the estate. It's a hunter's camp. 3 grizzled men sit around a fire, sharpening blades and roasting something that may once have been a rabbit. They stare. You freeze. One says, "You look like trouble." Another replies, "No, he looks like wet trouble." They offer you food. You decline. They insist. You accept. The meat is stringy and they say it's swamp hare, but you suspect rat. Still you eat. Assassins aren't picky. Eventually they ask where you're headed. You say, "Just wandering." One squints. With a dagger and monk boots? You smile. They don't. You leave. By the time you find the real estate, complete with guards, stone walls, and banners fluttering in the breeze, you're sore, mosquito-bitten, and mentally composing a song titled, "Why Didn't I Learn Carpentry Instead?" You wait until full dark, then scale the outer wall. It's harder than the training dummies made it seem. Stones are slick with moss. Your boots don't grip. You slip twice, once landing face first in a decorative rosebush. You now smell like fear and floral arrangements. Once inside, you skulk through shadowed halls, dodging servants and ghosts of your own nervous sweat. You find the Lord's chambers, locked, of course. You try the lockpick set someone gave you once in a pub. The wrong end snaps off inside the keyhole. You mutter something inappropriate. The door opens anyway because apparently the real key was under a statue of St. Clovis nearby. You tiptoe in. It's elegant and weirdly cozy. There's a harp in the corner and someone's left half a cherry tart on the writing desk. The documents are on the bed, just lying there. You take them. You glance at the sleeping figure beneath velvet sheets. One hand sticks out, ringed and soft. You imagine slipping your dagger into the shadows between ribs. You imagine everything going wrong. And then you leave. No kill tonight. Instead, you run, fast, quietly, through corridors, over walls, into the woods. You return before dawn, hand the scrolls to your handler. He opens them, raises an eyebrow. "These are cookbooks," he says. You blink. They were on the bed. He stares at you. You didn't read them. "I can't read," you admit. He grumbles something about literacy rates and waves you off. No punishment, no lecture, just another mission tomorrow. You limp back to your corner of the barracks, fall onto your straw mat, and exhale. Another night survived. Later, you hear the real target was the Lord's cousin, who lived in the attic and ate live frogs as part of some personal diet experiment. The estate had been under surveillance for months. Your actions, while technically wrong, somehow forced the cousin to flee. So success? Historians still argue whether the great frog diet scandal of 1321 was political or dietary. But you just wanted a nap. You've now learned a few truths. 1. No one double-checks your work. 2. Everything is harder when wet. 3. Rich people leave pastries in the weirdest places. More importantly, you've developed a sixth sense. Not for danger, not for evil. For wrong rooftops. Because 3 days later, it happens again. You're assigned a job in a small fortress. Same vague description: infiltrate, acquire, escape. You map it, plan it, approach it, and climb exactly the wrong tower. Inside, not a scribe's quarters, but a small chapel filled with monks at midnight in prayer. You crash through a stained glass window like a bat in the throes of a moral crisis. Land in the font. Splash. Candlelight flares. Monks scream. Someone throws a Bible. You run. You always run. And somewhere in the blur of your wet footprints and bruised shins, you start laughing. Because this is your life now. You, the reluctant assassin. Master of misfires. Whisperer of goats. Climber of incorrect buildings. Not feared, not respected, but somehow still alive. You're pretty sure monks aren't supposed to glare like that. Yet here you are, posing as a pilgrim scribe in the scriptorium of St. Eustace's monastery. While Brother Aldrich, keeper of ink, scrolls, and the general vibe, has been watching you like you've personally insulted the Virgin Mary. Which, to be fair, might have happened accidentally when you sneezed on a hymn sheet yesterday. This is your latest assignment. Go undercover, find a hidden message supposedly being passed between high-ranking clergy, and retrieve it without alerting anyone. You thought it would be glamorous: shadowy hallways, secret symbols, a hidden compartment in a bishop's hat. What it is, actually, is 12 hours a day of copying Latin phrases you don't understand, with a quill made from a goose that probably died angry, and an ink pot that smells exactly like regret. You were given 1 week. That was 9 days ago, and you still haven't found the message. You have, however, found a lot of things no one wanted to know. Brother Simon snores while awake. Someone is hiding pears in the apothecary jars. The word virtus appears more often than it should and may or may not be a euphemism. And most importantly, the monastery has lice, so many lice. It's hard to stay stealthy when you're constantly itching. They don't tell you that in assassin school. They don't mention the lice, or the bed bugs, or the fact that monks eat nothing but boiled turnips for dinner 4 days a week. You've lost weight, gained calluses, learned a little Latin. You still haven't figured out where the message is. The thing is, secrecy here is baked into the routine. Everyone whispers. Everyone walks like they're afraid of being heard by God. So the moment you start sneaking around, it's somehow more obvious. One night, you decide to try the old classic. Search the abbot's quarters. You wait until midnight, creep through the stone hall in your 2 large sandals, and slide into the room through a servant's passage. There's no treasure map, no cipher, just scrolls on theology, a deeply concerning wooden carving of a sad angel, and a drawer full of candied ginger. You eat 2 pieces for strength. Then, you hear it. A creak. You freeze. A shadow moves across the hallway. A robe swishes. Footsteps. Closer. You panic. Look for a hiding spot. There's a trunk in the corner. You dive in. Bad move. Inside the trunk, laundry. Not fresh. Not folded. Probably hasn't been touched since the last plague. You hold your breath. The door opens. A figure enters. Silence. Shuffling. Something being placed on the table. Then the door closes again. You wait a full 5 minutes, then another 5. When you finally crawl out, you find what was left behind, a small pouch. Inside, parchment. You scan the page, and for once you recognize a phrase. You've seen it before. Not here. In your briefing notes. This is it, the message. Encoded in common prayer phrases, hidden inside a sermon draft. Clever. Subtle. You sneak back to your cell, copy it, memorize it. But when you report back, your handler reads it and scowls. This isn't a message, he grumbles. This is a shopping list. Flour, salt, ox tongue. Who needs 3 ox tongues? You stare. You're still itchy, still hungry, still wearing monk sandals. He shrugs. Could be code, we'll find out. You ask, so what now? He says, new job, something simpler. You're assigned to pose as a traveling herb seller in a village near the border. Simple. Right. Your job? Deliver a satchel to a woman named Isolde. No questions, no delays. You travel by donkey cart for 4 days. The cart breaks once, the donkey breaks twice. When you arrive, Isolde turns out to be a baker's daughter who is far too interested in your herbs. She smells the satchel and says, this is just dried thyme. You shrug. I don't pack it, I just deliver it. She nods. Want to help me bake? That night, you find yourself elbow deep in sourdough. You knead, you hum, you eat warm rolls that make you question everything about your life choices. You stay 3 days. It's peaceful. No daggers, no suspicion, just yeast. You finally leave when a rider arrives with a note. Where are you? Back at camp, the handler says, she wasn't the target. You blink. She wasn't? He sighs. No, the mother was. Isolde just sells herbs. You think about the bread, the laughter, the warmth. Then you nod, noted. The rest of the week is spent studying poisons, which sounds intense. It's mostly chewing on plants and seeing if your vision goes blurry. Turns out, most of the best poisons are also terrible at their jobs. Mandrake takes hours. Hemlock tastes like sadness. And belladonna, that's just asking for messy pants and bad poetry. One night, an old assassin, Berold, tells you his trick. Just sprinkle dried lavender in the stew, he says. You raise an eyebrow. Lavender? He winks. Does nothing. But nobles panic when their soup smells too nice. You start to understand half the work is fear. Let people think something terrible might happen, and they'll do most of the panicking for you. Real stealth, real poison, that's expensive. Rumors? Much cheaper. Historians still debate whether the lavender soup panic of 1307 caused the barony of Lisbourg to collapse. You know the truth. It was you've a handful of flowers. At this point, you've officially lost track of your own resume. You've been a monk, a baker, a corpse carrier, and once, briefly, a street juggler. Don't ask. You haven't assassinated anyone. Not really. But you've caused 3 nobles to flee, 2 towns to fall into chaos, and 1 barmaid to name a tart after you. That has to count for something. As you curl into your blanket of stitched-together cloaks and vaguely lice-infested scarves, you whisper to the stars, I have no idea what I'm doing. And somehow, that's enough, because you're not dead. And in this business, that's practically a promotion. You've tried daggers, you've tried disguises, you've even tried whispering threats to bread loaves to build your confidence. But now you're trying poison. Because some mysterious noble, allegedly connected to 3 failed coups and 1 suspiciously fast bishop resignation, can't be reached by steel. No gaps in his guard, no private walks, not even a casual meet me in the orchard opportunity. He dines in a locked room and keeps 2 food testers on rotation. Yes, 2. That's the level we're at. So someone higher up decides we go with poison, and they choose you. Because apparently, after your monk escapade, bread baking side quest, and general ability to stumble through disaster with a weird sort of success, you've earned a reputation. Not as an elite assassin, no, as someone who can improvise. They give you a pouch of powder labeled certain death. It smells like nutmeg and bad decisions. You're told, get it in his meal, just a pinch, then disappear. Sounds easy. It's not. First problem, getting into the kitchen. The Lord's manor is well guarded, and the kitchens are more fortified than the chapel. Apparently, someone once tried to assassinate him with a particularly aggressive goose. Now, no one gets near the food without 3 forms of ID and a scald mark from the soup pot as proof of loyalty. So you pose as a turnip boy, a traveling vegetable seller with a limp and a stutter. It works, mostly because the cook is so stressed she doesn't care who chops the onions, as long as someone does. You spend 3 days in the kitchen peeling root vegetables, gutting fish, and dodging insults from a sous chef named Brienne, who may or may not be the angriest woman alive. On day 4, you spot your chance. The noble's dinner, venison stew, rich, dark, spicy. You pinch the poison pouch with shaking fingers, ready to slip it into the pot. And someone bumps you. You flinch. The entire dose spills, all of it, into the stew. Silence. You stare. Brienne stares. The pot bubbles. She sniffs. Smells better than usual, she mutters. You try to fish some out. Too late. A servant whisks the pot away. Dinner is served. You're frozen. You were told, just a pinch, not a whole pouch, not a whole pouch. You sneak out, sprint across the garden, vault the wall, collapse behind a hedge. You wait for the screams, the death bell, anything, nothing. An hour passes, 2. Finally, you bribe a stable boy for news. Dinner, he says. Best they ever had. Lord wants the recipe. You blink. He didn't die. You poisoned him with certain death, and he asked for seconds. You report this. Your handler frowns. Huh? Huh? You ask. He sniffs the empty pouch. Might have been the wrong powder. Might have been? He shrugs. Labels faded, could have been sleep dust, or meat tenderizer. You stare at him. He eats a grape. Still, good effort. You begin to question everything. The next week, you're given a new mission. Not killing, just surveillance. You're told a visiting scholar is actually a spy, trying to incite rebellion through philosophy lectures. Your job? Sit through his lectures, report what he says. You arrive in disguise again, a student this time. You borrow robes. You carry a blank scroll and pretend to take notes. The scholar? Professor Farron of the Western Cantons. He's old, sharp-eyed, and smells like ink and boiled cabbage. And he's fascinating. He talks about justice and freedom, and how no lord has a right to starve his peasants just to build bigger walls. The students nod. Some cry. You? Listen. You start to agree with him. One day, you slip a note to your handler. He's not a threat. He's a decent man. The reply comes back. Then he's definitely a threat. You're given new orders. Silence him. You can't. You try. You do. You wait by his room at night, dagger in hand, but he opens the door before you act. Looks right at you, says, "You look tired. Would you like tea?" You drink tea. You listen to him talk about hope, about building things, not destroying them. And in the morning you leave. You fake his death, smear pig blood on a coat, leave a slipper near the river, burn some papers. The Brotherhood believes you. They promote you. You're now officially field agent. You even get a new dagger, still chipped but shinier. You're praised for efficiency. You feel like a fraud. And yet, you're surviving. You've outlasted half your cohort. You've climbed the wrong towers, poisoned the wrong stews, let the right men live, and somehow you're still here. One night you find yourself back where it started, at the training grounds. Watching a new recruit get smacked with a stick. You wince, remember the pain, the confusion, the goat. You leave a small pouch by his bed. Inside, ointment for bruises, a crust of good bread, and a note. It doesn't get easier, but you get weirder. That helps. You sign it B. No one calls you by your full name anymore, just B. You're a letter now, a shadow with a code name. You wonder if this is what becoming an assassin really means. Not the killing, not the glamour, but the grayness. Doing things half right, telling half truths, saving lives no one asked you to save. Losing parts of yourself you can't even name. You sit on the edge of the old well, stare into the darkness. Somewhere down there, you're pretty sure your first training assignment is still rotting. You wonder how long you'll last, and then you get up. Because even if you're unsure, even if your stomach's full of doubt and too many root vegetables, you're still needed. Another mission, another disguise, another chance to fail successfully. You brush off your cloak, check your pockets. One apple, one message. And just in case, another pouch of certain death. You'll taste it first this time, just to be sure. You're not supposed to kill anyone tonight. Officially, you're on observational detail, which means you follow someone important and report back if they do anything suspicious. You're told not to interact, not to engage, not to stab. So naturally, you're hiding in a chicken coop. Why? Because your target, Sir Edric of Northmere, has taken a surprise detour through the village and decided, unexplainably, to have a private conversation with a shepherd behind someone's barn. And the only way you could stay out of sight was by diving headfirst into the nearest cover, which happened to be full of squawking, angry poultry. Your face is scratched. Your dignity has taken a blow. But you can just make out the conversation through a gap in the boards. Sir Edric is talking about taxes. Not gold, not weapons, not treason. Just sheep levies. You wait. Maybe something interesting will happen. It doesn't. You head back after 2 hours of feathery humiliation only to be asked, "Any intel?" You say, "He may be slightly undercharging shepherds this quarter." Your handler shrugs. "We'll take it." You're not even surprised anymore. The next morning, you're assigned to a new mission. A real one. A man named Father Renault is traveling under royal escort. Rumor has it he carries letters of extreme importance, possibly from the king himself. You're to intercept him, recover the letters, and disappear. Simple. Except nothing is ever simple. First, his route changes. Then its escort doubles. Then someone you've never met, wearing robes twice too large and a hat shaped like a boiled onion, joins the mission and tells you he has the letters. You follow him. He drops the letters into a river. On purpose. You leap in after them. The water is freezing. Your boot gets stuck. You come up sputtering with a scroll in your teeth, only to be caught by two guards who think you're a drunken fisherman. You're thrown into a holding cell for suspicious aquatic behavior. Later, your handler gets you out by pretending you're an idiot cousin of a minor baron. You're starting to believe it. Back at base, the scroll turns out to be a recipe for eel stew, possibly encrypted. Probably not. Your handler looks at you, damp and bruised, and says, "Well, at least you're thorough." You're about to speak when someone barges in. "Emergency," they say. "One of ours has gone rogue." The room goes quiet. The Brotherhood doesn't say what happens to rogues, but you've seen the look in their eyes, heard the quiet crackle of fires in the woods, smelled the scorched wool. You're assigned to track him. Name, Davy, former recruit, good with traps, like cheese too much. You head out with a bag of supplies and a vague sense of dread. 3 days of tracking through wet woods. You find his camp by accident, thanks to a squirrel, a banana peel, and gravity. Long story. He's there, alone, sitting by a fire, roasting what might be a hedgehog. He looks up, sees you, and just nods. "Didn't think they'd send you," he says. You don't respond. He gestures to the fire. "Sit, it's rabbit, not much poison." You sit, you talk. He tells you he left because of a dream. Not a metaphorical dream, an actual dream, a bad one. He says he saw himself killing a boy by mistake, then another, then a woman who looked like his mother, and he woke up, packed his things, and walked away. "I think I believe in mercy," he says. You stare at the flames. You don't know what you believe in anymore. Eventually he asks, "You gonna kill me?" You don't answer. You walk away. Next day you return to camp with a story. "I couldn't find him. Maybe bandits, maybe wolves." They believe you, sort of, but no one asks questions. The next few weeks are strange. You're given light work, observation, message running, no killing. Someone higher up is watching you, testing you. Then, your first rooftop assignment. Real roof, real height, real target. A visiting ambassador, suspected of carrying secret maps of border defenses. You're to drop onto his balcony during the night, enter through the window, and deal with it. You train for 2 days, practice balance, grip, timing. You memorize the layout, study the patrol patterns, prepare 3 different escape routes. Everything goes to plan. You climb, you leap, you land, silently. You slip inside. The ambassador is asleep. You raise your dagger. Then he turns, eyes open. He whispers, "Do it." Not in fear, not in pain, just acceptance. You freeze. "Please," he says, "make it quick." You step back. "I'm not who they think," he says. "I told them the truth. That's why they sent you." He opens a drawer, hands you a letter. "Take it, read it." You do. It's not maps. It's a confession of corruption, of a conspiracy. By your own side, you stare at him. He closes his eyes. You leave. You run. You don't stop. Back at camp, you burn the letter. Tell them he wasn't there. The mission is declared a failure. You're given a week off, unheard of. You spend it by the river, trying to skip stones, failing. One lands with a thud, like a body. You lie on your back, look at the clouds. You think about the ambassador, about Davy, about the man who taught you how to fall without flinching. You're not an assassin. Not really. You're a ghost, a rumor. And rumors can choose which truths to carry. The sun is setting behind the chapel tower, and everything is that deep, medieval gray again. The kind of dusk where time folds in on itself, and you can't tell if it's day ending or night beginning. You lean against a crumbling wall, chewing on a plum that's half bruised and half pit, watching as 2 sparrows argue over a crust of bread in the courtyard. You're not supposed to be here tonight. In fact, you're not even supposed to be in this town. Orders were to head east, link up with another agent near the border, and help encourage a minor noble to withdraw a certain inflammatory sermon. But the horse died or ran away, or maybe just got tired of being associated with you and made a career move. Either way, you're stranded, and the chapel, lonely, quiet, mildly haunted, is the safest place to wait. Which brings us to your current situation. Squatting in the priest's side chamber, pretending to be a traveling relic inspector, and trying not to breathe too loud because there's a funeral happening on the other side of the wall. You feel bad, but not too bad, because you're busy. Specifically, you're decoding a letter that may or may not have been slipped into your cloak by a toothless old woman who smiled at you for just a little too long in the market earlier. The letter is short, sloppy, written in a mix of Latin and kitchen shorthand. You think it says, "The wax is the key, ask the wax." Whatever that means. You've been staring at the line for hours. You've sniffed it, bit it, read it backwards. At one point, you accidentally burned the corner over a candle, and now everything smells like regret and parsnip soup. Still, something about the message sticks with you. You wander the chapel after midnight, poking at statues and candles, until you notice something. One of the wax figures near the altar has something inside it. You melt it down. Inside, a coin, old, not valuable, but marked with a crest you recognize. The wrong crest. Not the one this chapel should be under. Not the one on any of the nearby barons' banners. This coin belongs to someone who isn't supposed to be here. You make a note. In the morning, you're gone before the sexton lights the incense. You head east on foot. On the third day, a rider finds you, hands you a scroll, rides off without a word. Inside the scroll, new orders, urgent, return to capital. You groan, your feet groan, even your dagger seems to sigh. But you turn back, because orders are orders, and frankly, you miss soup. When you arrive, the city is buzzing. A duke has died, no one's saying how. Rumors range from poison to divine lightning to spontaneous frog emergence. The Brotherhood is panicking, quietly, but you can see it in their eyes. You're pulled into a meeting with 4 people you've never seen before, all of them wearing insignias too high for comfort. They ask questions about loyalty, about rumors, about factions within factions. You answer in careful half-truths. One of them, a woman with rings on every finger, leans in and asks, "Do you know who trusts you?" You say nothing. She nods. "Good, keep it that way." You're dismissed. No new assignment, no dinner, just silence. That night, you return to your corner of the barracks and find a letter on your blanket. It says, "The wax again," but not the figure, the seal. You sit up, of course. You dig through your old pouch of oddities, buttons, herbs, a pebble that looks like a horse, and find the scroll from last week, the one you never opened. You'd thought it was blank, useless. But now in the candlelight, you notice it. The wax seal has been pressed with something strange. You melt it. Inside the wax, a single hair, long, pale, almost white. You know whose it is. A noblewoman, an advisor to the prince, thought dead for years, actually exiled, rumored to be building a quiet rebellion. Against whom? Hard to say. Could be the Brotherhood, could be everyone. You don't sleep that night. In the morning, you're sent north. No explanation, just a map, a time, a name. You travel with 4 others, you don't speak. One of them dies on the 2nd day, snake bite. Another slips and falls into a gorge. You start to think the mission is cursed. When you arrive at the meeting point, a ruined watchtower in the middle of a sheep field, you find a man waiting. He wears gray. He looks like every merchant you've ever ignored. He says, "Do you know what's happening?" You shake your head. He says, "Good. That means you're not part of it." Then he gives you a box. No key, no instructions, just the box. You take it. That night, you're ambushed. 3 cloaked figures, no insignia, no words. You fight, clumsily, desperately. You're not a sword master, you're not even good, but you're stubborn. You win, barely. Bleeding, you open the box. Inside, names, dozens of names. Agents, spies, nobles, all tied to the Brotherhood. Some crossed out, some circled. Your name isn't on the list, but your handler's is. You burn the box, keep the names, and disappear for a week. When you return, you return, no one mentions your absence. Your handler is gone. Transferred, they say. You get a new one, younger, smiles too much, gives you a new mission. Something about a missing bishop in a festival involving decorative cabbage. You nod, take the assignment, walk away, and realize you're not sure who you work for anymore. But you're still working, still moving, still surviving. Even as the shadows twist around you, as the names blur, and the wax melts again and again. Because you're not a dagger, you're not a ghost. You're a question, and no one dares answer you. You don't know when it started exactly. This sensation that someone's always watching you, not just your targets, not just your failures, but your movements, your silences, your pauses before answering a question. And it's not paranoia if the watchers are real, is it? That's what you ask yourself as you sit quietly in the rafters of a candle maker's workshop. Legs folded, face masked with soot, while the candle maker below argues with a noblewoman over the price of beeswax. You've been here for hours, not because the man is your mark. He's not. You're here to watch who he watches. Because now apparently you're being used to spy on spies. There's a new faction rising inside the Brotherhood, or maybe alongside it, or beneath it. No one seems to know. But you're starting to see signs, coded messages hidden in household purchases, strange repeated symbols carved into bread crusts, and once a cluster of feathers arranged precisely on the rim of a chamber pot. You'd laugh if you weren't so tired. This time it's different. The candle maker never glances at the noblewoman. Instead, his eyes flick upward, to the rafters, to you. You freeze. Then he winks. You vanish. By nightfall, the workshop is burning. Not your fault, probably. You return to base. Your new handler is waiting, smiling. He hands you a bundle. Costume, he says. You unwrap it. It's a jester's outfit. You look at him. Festival infiltration, he explains. They suspect someone plans to poison the mayor during the Midsummer Fool's Parade. Of course they do. So the next day, you're juggling onions in a public square, pretending to laugh, while scanning the crowd for assassins who might also be pretending to laugh. The other fools eye you suspiciously. One of them juggles flaming pins. Another rides a goat. You hate both of them. And then you see her. A girl in a red scarf holding a pie. The wrong kind of pie. Too perfect. Too symmetrical. No crumbs. You know a decoy when you see one. You approach, smile, say something about pudding. She drops the pie and runs. You give chase. Through alleyways, over fences, past a man dressed as a turnip. You catch her in a grain stall. She laughs, says, "I'm not the assassin." You say, "Then who is?" She says, "You," and bites down on something. You pry her mouth open. Too late. Poison. The frothy kind. She dies smiling. You search her, find nothing. No note, no name. Just one thing, a wax seal sewn into her sleeve. Cracked. Familiar. You report the incident. Your handler seems less surprised than he should be. That night, you receive a letter. No wax, no name. They're already inside. They're using you. Watch who gives you orders. You burn the letter, but not before copying the handwriting. You've seen it before. On a scroll 6 months ago, during a job that was supposed to be about missing livestock. You realize that scroll was never about goats. You're beginning to see a pattern. The next mission is a test. You're told to follow a merchant into enemy territory and listen in on a meeting. No interaction, no theft, no engagement. But when you get there, there is no merchant. Just 3 men waiting, armed. They say your name, your real name. You don't remember telling anyone that in years. One of them steps forward. "We're not here to kill you," he says. "We're here to offer you a choice." You listen. They say the Brotherhood has fractured. Some say the crown controls it now. Others say the merchants. A few whisper it's the clergy. No one knows. But this group, they want to end it. Burn the records. Free the agents. Dismantle the shadows. They want you to join them. You leave without answering. That night, you sit in a ruined bell tower holding 2 stones. On one is carved the mark of the Brotherhood. On the other, a circle broken once. You don't sleep. In the morning, you receive a new order. Kill a traitor. Former agent. Name up boom. Your name. You laugh. Aloud. Then you pack your things. Burn your bunk. And walk. For days. Weeks. You travel under false names. Eat wild herbs. Learn the sound of your own silence. Eventually, you find a village. Quiet. Remote. With people who don't ask questions. You become the village scribe. You mend shoes. You learn to make honey cakes. You forget the names of poisons. But some nights, when the wind is too still and the moon too full, you feel them. He eyes, watching, waiting. The candle flickers. The shadows lean in. And somewhere in the dark, a message waits for you. Melt the wax. Break the seal. Choose. You try farming. For about a week. Turns out, you are not a natural farmer. You plant too deep, water too little, and your attempt at building a scarecrow results in something that terrifies children more than crows. Still, the locals smile kindly, call you Brother Ben, even though you never actually claim that name. You fix roofs, sharpen tools, chase wolves off sheep fields with a torch and a loud voice. The quiet is good for your bones, the silence is good for your head, until the wrong man rides into town. He's not wearing brotherhood insignia, but you can smell it on him. The quiet gait, the calm eyes, the posture of someone always measuring escape routes. You spot him the moment he arrives. He spots you too. Neither of you say anything. Not that day. Not the next. On the third day, he leaves a note wedged into your doorframe. You don't open it, you burn it, but you memorize the handwriting. And the seal, a broken circle. Again. 2 nights later, the mayor of the village falls ill after a feast. Everyone assumes bad pork. You don't. You track the illness to a wine bottle delivered the day before. No one remembers who left it. You stay up all night, sitting in your dark hut, staring at the wall. No lights, no sounds, just the faint creak of the wind brushing past. In the morning, you pack your things, leave the village, because you know now you can't outwalk the shadows, not forever. You're back on the road, again, except this time you're not working for anyone. You're not hunting names from a scroll or receiving orders from a too-polite handler with a fake smile. You're following your own trail now. There's a rumor of an archive, an underground vault where Brotherhood documents are kept. Blackmail files, birth records, histories of who ordered what and who was made to vanish where. You've heard whispers for years. Every time you mentioned it aloud, someone would change the subject. Now you want to find it, because your name's in there. And maybe, so is your way out. You follow trail markers no one else sees. The symbol of the old Brotherhood, 2 crossed reeds in wax. Not the new seal, the forgotten one, carved into fence posts, burned into barn beams, hidden in the corners of maps. You bribe a stable boy for a horse. You steal a cloak from a tax collector who really should have kept his insults to himself. You travel by night, hide by day. At one inn, a barkeep offers you stew and says, "You smell like betrayal." You leave before breakfast. Eventually, you reach the ruins. A collapsed abbey, long burned, overtaken by moss and silence. You find the trap door under what used to be the altar. Stairs lead down. You light a torch. It smells like rot and secrets. The archive is real. Not a room, a corridor. Scrolls stacked in wax-sealed cases, ledgers, notes written on the backs of sermon pages and tax records. You find your name 6 times. 5 are lies. 1 is a truth you didn't expect. It says, asset unstable, reassigned to misinformation detail. The mission with the goose, the time you followed the baker's daughter, the fake ambassador, all meant to keep you busy. You weren't trusted. You were kept out of the way. You keep reading. You find another scroll, marked confidential dead drop, inside a list of agents who were eliminated. Not for failing, for knowing too much. You recognize half the names. You add yours to the list. Fold the scroll, burn it. When you leave the vault, the world feels heavier. Or maybe you do. You go to a small coastal town, sell knives. Not assassin knives, just cooking ones. You learn the names of herbs that don't kill people. One day, a boy brings you a bird with a broken wing. You fix it. He smiles. Tells his mother you're the knife man who helps. For the first time in years, someone says your name without fear. Still, some nights, you wake with your dagger in your hand and your breath caught in your throat. Somewhere, someone is still watching. Still waiting. You don't run this time. You write a letter. Seal it with your own mark, a reed snapped in half. You leave it at a known dead drop. It says, I know what you did. I know who you used. I'm not your tool anymore. I'm not your myth. If you want me, find me. I'll be waiting, but I won't be alone. Then you wait. Days pass, weeks. No one comes. You begin to hope. But on the 13th night, you find a coin in your windowsill. Same old crest, different color. You flip it, heads. That means war. You don't ask for help, you send for it. Not through scrolls, not through messengers. Those get intercepted too easily. You use the old way, the bird system. Yes, it's as ridiculous as it sounds. You hike 3 hours into a cedar grove to find the haphazard lean-to where a semi-retired Brotherhood falconer lives. He's named Finlow, but he insists everyone call him Clove. Why? You don't ask, that's part of the code. You trade him a loaf of bread and half a rabbit in exchange for the use of a crow named Gert. You attach your note. They sent the coin. Black wax, no name. I need someone I can trust. Come quietly, come armed. You wait 2 days. Try to make peace with the silence, the way you used to in the old days, before everything became so tangled in less layers and fake names. On the 3rd morning, someone's warming their hands by your fire. You don't even hear them arrive. It's Mira. You knew her once. In the academy days, she was faster than everyone, sharper, and she laughed exactly 3 times that anyone could remember. Once when someone's pants caught fire during dagger drills. She looks the same, just older, less breakable. You called, she says. You nod. And just like that, you're no longer alone. The two of you fall into a rhythm instantly. She's got maps, names, questions. You've got answers. The same coin appeared at 2 other outposts. One agent turned up dead. Another simply vanished. There's a pattern now. The coins precede silence, which means whoever's using them has access to deep Brotherhood protocols. Mira sets up a listening post near the edge of town, a fake tanner's tent with a hollowed-out barrel for document drops. You take turns watching from a hilltop. You don't speak much. There's nothing to say. You're both thinking the same thing. Someone inside is burning the rest of you down. On the 5th night, a courier arrives. Skinny, nervous, new. You catch him before he reaches the tavern. He hands you a letter, no seal, just a symbol drawn in ash. You read it, your hands go cold. It's a meeting request, not from a superior, from one of them, the inner circle. They want a parley. You send no reply. But you go. Of course you do. You and Mira dress in plain clothes. No weapons you can't hide. You meet them on the edge of an orchard, midnight with the wind rattling the pear trees. 3 figures wait for you, all masked, standard Brotherhood protocol. But the voice that speaks is familiar. Too familiar. It's your old handler, the one who was transferred. He says, "We didn't expect you to last this long." Mira steps beside you, silent, unreadable. Your handler gestures to the other 2. They're here to offer a solution. You reply, "You mean a threat." He nods, almost amused, a polite one. They give you a choice. Walk away, leave the country, live quietly under a new name, or stay and be hunted. You ask, "Why the purge?" They say nothing. You ask, "What's the real goal?" Still silence. Mira throws a knife. It lands between their feet. They flinch, just a little. You step forward, say, "We're not afraid." You walk away. You expect them to follow. They don't. Not yet. Back at your hideout, Mira starts packing. You say, "Where to?" She answers, "We go to the archives again, the deep ones." You raise an eyebrow. "I thought those were a myth." She shakes her head. Not all myths are false. And so begins the next phase. You move constantly. Never sleep twice in the same place. Carry 3 changes of clothing and 1 name you haven't used since you were 15. Along the way, you collect people. Not formally, not loudly. But quietly you find others. Ones who slipped through the cracks. Ones who still ask questions. You build something small, quiet, mobile. A ghost network. One day, Mira brings in someone you never thought you'd see again. Rafe, the one-armed legend. The man who once told you the job wasn't about killing, but about not dying. He's grayer now, slower, but his eyes still see through you. He joins without question. You have allies now. You have something like purpose. And for a time, you are almost happy. But happiness, like wax, melts. It happens in a quiet town on market day. You spot a girl in the crowd, red scarf, too clean, too calm. A pie seller, just like before. You grab her arm. She smiles. "No coin," she whispers, "just a message." She hands you a folded note and disappears. You open it. It says, "Stop digging, or we dig up what you buried." Mira reads it, says nothing. But that night, she sharpens every knife she owns. You don't sleep. The next day, your camp is quiet, too quiet. You find the boy who helps with supplies. Throat cut. You find the firewood pile burned into a symbol, 2 reeds snapped in a circle. A message. They're not warning you anymore. They're coming. And now it's not just your survival. It's everyone's. You gather the others. You speak plainly. "We can run," you say, "or we can burn this down before they do." They choose fire. The plan forms quickly. You're going back to the capital. Not for assassination, for exposure. There's a vault in the palace. A second archive. Hidden in the walls. It holds the names of the living, the double agents, the deals made in blood. You're gonna steal it. And when you do, you won't keep it. You'll send it to every noble, every guild, every monastery and border town. Let the world know who's really pulling strings. You're not an assassin anymore. You're a messenger. And the message is war. You're in the capital again, but it doesn't feel like the same city. Maybe it's the fog, maybe it's the guilt, maybe it's the fact that you're about to break into one of the most heavily guarded buildings in the entire kingdom to steal a list of names that could either save or destroy everything you've ever touched. You'd like to say you feel heroic. You mostly feel like you might throw up. The team arrives in waves. Mira gets in first, posing as a traveling apothecary offering cough syrup to overworked guards. Her potions actually work, which buys her time and sympathy. Rafe enters next, disguised as a pensioned war hero returning to petition for his long-lost horse. He improvises this backstory with alarming detail. They let him in. People always let Rafe in. You wait. You're the last. Your way in, the laundry carts. It's humiliating, undignified. Smells like wet wool and goat, but it works. You emerge inside the palace underbelly, damp tunnels, dripping stone corridors, forgotten servants' stairwells. From there, it's a short crawl to the north wall, the one rumored to contain the second archive, sealed between two layers of old royal construction, camouflaged behind a series of false alcoves and saintly mosaics. You find the alcove. You tap the bricks. One sounds hollow. You press. A panel slides open. Dust spills out. You step inside. It's a chamber barely bigger than a root cellar. Shelves line the walls. Ledgers, scrolls, wax tablets, sealed messages. You light a candle. On the largest scroll, you see the symbol. 2 reeds, snapped, interlocked. This is it, the real list. And it's worse than you imagined. Everyone's name is here. Nobles, merchants, priests. They've all played parts. Paid for assassinations. Ordered sabotage. Some entries go back 50 years. You find your name 3 times, each one a different code. You also find the truth. Your handler wasn't reassigned. He was eliminated after your rogue contact with Dabi. The Brotherhood didn't believe in discipline anymore, just disposal. You roll the scroll and prepare to leave when a figure steps into the doorway. It's Mira, but her eyes are wrong. She says, "Don't move." You freeze. She holds a dagger. "Put it down," she says. You blink. "Mira?" She doesn't answer. Then another voice behind her. "Thank you, Agent M." Another figure enters. Your old handler. Smiling. Clapping. "Took you long enough to find it," he says. Mira doesn't lower her weapon. "Neither do you." He steps forward. "You're not the hero here, you're the cleanup." You ask, "What is this?" He grins. "We let you find the archive. We let you bring your friends. Because now you've gathered every rogue in one place. All the loose ends, all the questions." He pauses. "Now we burn it, and you. You laugh, because you were never that easy." You nod toward a corner of the room, where Rafe stands, crossbow drawn. Behind him, 2 more of your crew. Turns out, Mira was captured, but she escaped. And this Mira isn't Mira. She smirks, the illusion flickers. A decoy, a trick, one of yours. A final test of who was still trying to control you. The handler steps back. "What do you want?" You hold up the scroll. "Truth." He spits. "That'll burn the kingdom." You nod. "Maybe it should." He lunges. He's fast, but not fast enough. Rafe's bolt catches him in the shoulder. He falls, screaming. You don't kill him. That's not your way anymore. You leave him with the dead names and locked doors, and you walk out. The palace is chaos by dawn. You've already sent the scroll. Not just one copy, dozens, each coded, each distributed. Some via merchants, others via song. One inside a loaf of bread delivered to a cardinal. By noon, the nobles are panicking. By sundown, the Brotherhood has gone silent. Some vanish, some flee, some beg for meetings they'll never get. You're already gone, on the road. No name, no coin, just your cloak, your boots, and a faint smile on your face. You did it. You ended the chain, or at least broke it long enough for people to breathe. You meet Mira in the hills, the real Mira. She says, "Well," you say, "It's done." She hands you a crust of bread, no poison. You eat. The wind picks up. Somewhere in the distance, church bells ring. For what? You don't know, but they sound lighter now. Like maybe the weight is finally shifting. And you're not an assassin anymore. You're just a name no one remembers. And that's exactly how you like it. You've done it. You've burned the names. Or rather, you lit the fire and the world did the rest. It spread faster than you imagine. The scrolls, the codes, the quiet testimonies whispered down cathedral halls and across market carts. They reached everyone. Nobles woke to find their mistresses packing. Monks refused to take confession. Even beggars suddenly knew too much. The peasant uprising didn't start exactly, but the trust between ruler and ruled, that crumbled like a dry biscuit in a wine vat. You watch from a distance. You're living in a half-collapsed windmill now. Mira lives down the road, closer to a stream where she fishes and swears at birds. Rafe visits sometimes. Other names come and go, old agents, newer faces, people who chose freedom over rank. You've become a hub, not a leader. That word still leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But you listen, and you don't lie. That's enough these days. One evening, a young man shows up. No cloak, no weapons, just calloused hands and two bright eyes. He calls you sir. You wince. He says he heard about you from a merchant who swears you saved his brother's town by sending a pigeon that exploded. You blink. That definitely didn't happen. He asks, will you train me? You say no. He stays anyway. Helps patch the roof, fetches water, asks again the next week. You say, I don't train assassins. He shrugs. That's fine, I don't want to be one. You glance at Mira later that night. She nods. Let him stay. You give the boy a dagger, not to use, just to carry, to remember. That same week, rumors begin again. Whispers of a new brotherhood, smaller, harsher, reborn from the ashes, led by names that survived your purge by staying quiet, small, careful. You gather with your people, ask, do we go back in? Silence. Then Mira says, no, we don't chase ghosts. You agree, but that doesn't mean you sit idle. Instead of destroying systems, you start building alternatives. Courier networks, secret signals for distress, code books disguised as cookbooks. You help set up safe houses in abandoned monasteries. Map out new escape routes, a shadow counter to the old shadows. You're not fighting anymore, you're unfolding. And that is slower, but more powerful. A season passes, then another. You grow a beard. Rafe brews something he insists is wine. Mira builds a fence for the first time in her life and swears she'll never do it again. You still have the scroll, the original one, the real archive. You keep it hidden in a hollowed-out tree trunk, not to use, just to remember. One stormy night, you find yourself holding it, reading it again. You trace your old name. Then, below it, you notice something. A new entry, your new name, added recently. Fresh ink. You don't remember writing it. You wake Mira. She reads it, frowns. This means someone knows you're still alive. You nod. She doesn't ask who. The next morning, the young man is gone. Not a trace, no struggle, no note. You find a token near his bedroll, a broken wax seal. Snapped reads, he was bait, a message. You gather your people. Again, not to go to war, not to take revenge, but to disappear. Completely. You divide the names. Scatter the maps. One group goes west, another to the sea. You go north. Mira leaves last. She doesn't say goodbye. You understand. You walk for days, weeks, through forests, across rivers, into mountains that don't exist on maps. There, you build something smaller. A cabin, a garden. You teach local children how to track wolves. One day, a girl offers you a knife and says, can you make me like you? You say, no, but I can make you someone better. She nods. You begin again. Years pass. One spring, an old man limps up the path. You don't recognize him at first. Then you do. Clove, the falconer. He's missing an eye now. Still wears feathers. He hands you a bundle. Inside a scroll. No axe, no seal, just one sentence. They're asking about the windmill. You sigh, because of course they are. You look at Clove. Can I stay? He shrugs. Only if you plant better onions this year. And that's it. You stay, because you've learned this. The job never ends, but you don't have to keep being the job. You can be something else, someone else. And when the world sends another coin, you won't run, but you won't pick up the dagger either. You'll open the door, invite them to dinner, feed them stew, then ask them gently, quietly, are you sure this is the life you want? And maybe, just maybe, they'll say no, and sit down. You've planted tomatoes, not metaphorically, actual tomatoes. In a neat row too, with little wooden stakes and a bit of twine you found tucked in the pocket of a coat you haven't worn since the year someone tried to poison you with a blessed lemon tart. Your fingers are stained, Your back aches in ways you're too embarrassed to explain, and you've spent the last 3 mornings arguing with a goose who insists the tomato patch is his divine inheritance. This is peace, apparently. You don't mind it. Mostly. There are still letters, though. They come rarely, but when they do, they find you. Slipped into bundles of herbs, hidden in the seams of sacks of flour. Once carved into a plank you were using to fix the outhouse roof. They never sign names, just updates. The merchant from Hanlon was sighted again. Westport safe house no longer safe. The red feather coat is compromised. Each letter ends with the same phrase. Are you still watching? You are. Quietly, carefully, always. The thing is, even without orders, even without an organization to report to, people like you don't just forget how to look. You don't forget how to listen. You can hear the shift in a room before anyone speaks. You can feel the weight of a glance held a little too long. You know the difference between someone carrying secrets and someone preparing to bury them. Which is why, when the traveling carpenter arrives in your village with a wagon full of tools and an accent that shifts when he gets tired, you notice. He's kind, friendly, too good with names. He calls you sir exactly once. You pretend not to flinch. 3 days pass. You invite him for stew. He accepts. You serve him from the good pot, the one without the crack in the lid, and he compliments the broth. It's venison, but you don't tell him that. As the fire crackles low and your guest leans back with the easy sigh of someone who wants to appear at ease, you ask, so who sent you? He laughs, then doesn't. You both sit in silence. He finally says, they just want to know where you went. You nod, they already know. He adds, they want you to come back. No, you say. He studies you. Even if it means others might die, you sip your stew. No one dies because I stay quiet. They die because someone else makes a list. That's when he knows it's over. He finishes eating, thanks you, leaves before dawn. 2 days later, your village is searched. Not officially, quietly. You spot the scouts. They're good, trained. But you were trained by ghosts. You lead them into a thicket of false trails. Let them chase your shadow. Meanwhile, Mira arrives. Her hair is grayer, her knife still sharp. She brings news. The Brotherhood's reforming, not from the top, from the seas, fractals instead of hierarchy, cells instead of towers. You ask, why tell me? She says, because they're using your name. You blink. I didn't give them that. She nods. Doesn't matter, the myth has a job now. You laugh. You, a myth? If only they knew the truth. That the man who was once a ghost now spends most of his time arguing with a goose and avoiding onions. Still, it gets to you. At night, you sit on your porch, hold your old dagger, not to use, just to remember. You think about what it means. To be a story. To be used by others to build something better. Or worse. You think about the boy who asked to be trained. The letters. The names. The second chance. You decide you'll go, not to rejoin. To warn, you pack your bag. Leave a note on the door for Mira. Back soon or not, feed the goose. You walk south. Not as fast as before, but steady. Along the way, you visit a friend, Deva. He lives in a hut surrounded by bees. You sit together for a while. Say nothing. He finally says, it doesn't get easier. You nod. I know. He gives you honey for the road. You reach the meeting place at dusk. An abandoned mill, half swallowed by ivy. Inside, 4 people. They greet you like a stranger. They're young, too young. They ask about tactics, structure, power. You interrupt. Say, if you rebuild the Brotherhood, you'll rebuild the rot too. They hesitate. You continue. You don't need control, you need trust. You don't need knives, you need names protected, not collected. They argue, but they listen. You leave them with your journal. Not instructions, just stories. Real ones. Messy, human. Mistake-riddled. You walk away as the stars come out. Back to your tomatoes. Your goose. You're quiet. You know it won't last. But peace, even temporary, is a kind of resistance. It starts with a whistle. Low, 2 notes, whistled like someone calling a dog. You're pruning tomato vines again, with your back to the village path when you hear it. You freeze. That whistle hasn't been used since the old days, and only by one person. You turn, and there she is. Not Mira. Eleanor, the first handler you ever met. The one with the hawk tattoo behind her ear. The one who vanished during the Iron Pass mission and was declared dead. The one who trained you to spot a trap in a smile and hear a blade in the way someone coughs. She shouldn't be here, but she is. She's older now, leaner, wearing homespun, but the eyes still sharp enough to slice bread. She says, "Can we talk?" You don't say yes, you just lead her inside. She sits, doesn't touch the stew you offer, doesn't remove her cloak. You sit opposite. Wait, finally she says, "They're calling you the last dagger." You roll your eyes. "That's dramatic." She shrugs. "It's catching on." You ask, "Why are you really here?" She says, "To warn you." You laugh. "Everyone keeps doing that." "No," she says. "Not about them, about you." She leans in. "You're becoming the thing we fought against." You blink. She continues. "You have a following, a myth, a network. People listen to you, even the people trying to replace the brotherhood." "I'm not giving orders." "No," she says, "but they still wait for your approval." You don't argue, because you've seen it too. The glances, the way people pause when you speak, the weight of your silence in meetings. You didn't mean to become a leader again. You just never stopped surviving. She says, "If you don't burn the myth now, it'll burn you later." You ask, "So what do I do?" She stands, walks to the door, looks out over your little garden, then softly disappear for real, for good this time. She leaves without goodbye. And you know she's right. You spend the next day thinking, then the next, then a week. You harvest your tomatoes, feed the goose, mend the roof, watch the sky change. And then, one dawn, you pack your things. This time you tell no one, not even Mira. You leave a single letter, folded, unsealed. It says, "Stop following me. Stop using my name. You don't need me anymore. If you think you do, then you've already lost." Then you walk, and you keep walking. Past the rivers, over the hills, through the last border town where anyone remembers your face. You reach the coast. There's a boat waiting. No one asks who you are. You board. No destination. Just wind, salt, the open unknown. You become someone else. A baker, maybe. A librarian. A man who doesn't flinch when someone drops a plate. A man who can finally sleep through the night without dreaming of wax seals and blood. Years pass, and somewhere in the lands you left behind, a new order rises. Not of assassins, of protectors, of people who walk with open hands instead of hidden daggers. They build things, not perfect things, but better. And in the stories they pass down, there's still a name, yours, spoken quietly, as a warning and as a hope. That once, someone saw the rot and chose to walk away. And that maybe, just maybe, others can do the same. The fire is burning low now. Soft, golden shadows flicker along the walls. Outside your window, the wind moves gently through the trees. No urgency, just rhythm. You've come a long way tonight, through mossy corridors and coalstone keeps, through letters hidden in pies and whispers passed behind chapel walls. You've slipped through alleys, climbed wrong rooftops, and ducked into chicken coops. And all along the way, you weren't just surviving, you were quietly rewriting the rules. You never needed a title, never needed glory. You made choices that weren't clean, or easy, or always right, but they were yours. That's what mattered. And now the story fades. The candle gutters. Your bones are quiet, you've done what you could. Maybe someone else will pick up the trail. Maybe not, either way the world spins on. Let the myths carry on without you. Let the secrets stay buried. Tonight, you're not an assassin. You're not a ghost. You're someone warm, safe, and steady in a small, quiet place, where the only shadow that moves is the one curling around your blanket, and the only whisper you hear is the one lulling you to sleep. Close your eyes. Let go. You've earned your peace. Sleep well, friend.